Today we're going to make an original drink, Oaxaca Forever. For this drink, you're going to need an old-fashioned glass, a jigger, a bar spoon, and that's it. This drink uses smoky mezcal, coffee liqueur, and Fernet. This drink was designed to be quick and easy. Take 3 shelf-stable ingredients, build it in a glass, and drink it. It's an herbal, smoky, chocolatey cocktail that's like a darker, more intense Negroni. And like a Negroni, it has a beautiful, distinctive color. Because of its striking color, when I started thinking of a name for the drink, I began trying to come up with Black Panther puns. The first thing I thought of was to try and make a portmanteau of Oaxaca and Wakanda, but they share too many phonetics and syllables to make that viable. I eventually settled on a play of the movie's catchphrase, Wakanda Forever. But in the process of looking into names for the drink, it led me down a rabbit hole in the origin of the name Wakanda. The character in the world of Black Panther was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but as author and religious scholar Peter Manseau points out in his Washington Post article, the name Wakanda is not African, it's American. Native American. Throughout most of the 20th century, Wakanda was commonly used as a name of summer camps across the country. The name had been fully absorbed into America's colonial lexicon, but in several instances its roots were still clearly visible. Although it took on many forms, spellings, and pronunciations, several indigenous nations used the word Wakanda, or one similar to it in their vocabulary. In the languages of the Sioux, Osage, Lakota, Omaha, Iowa, Winnebago, and others, it referred to the idea of a supreme being. It's often translated as the Great Spirit, but as activist, author, and actor Russell Means pointed out, it's more accurately translated as the Great Mystery. The term was documented at length in several 19th century sources, including a report from the Bureau of Ethnology. That report, among other sources, was cited by Edgar Rice Burroughs as research for his novels The War Chief and Apache Devil. Burroughs was a prolific writer of science fiction and fantasy novels, who's most famous for creating Tarzan. But like any good sci-fi fantasy out there, Burroughs' creations were a cultural patchwork, woven together to create something otherworldly. From gladiators on Mars, to 20th century characters battling woolly mammoths and medieval samurai, to Native American tropes showing up in Africa, Burroughs blended several different ingredients to create cocktails of genre and culture. In Burroughs' book about a giant lion called the Man-Eater, the story opens with a local tribe in the Congo fighting off the Belgian colonists. And it shouldn't be a surprise to learn that the name of that tribe was Wakanda. That story was published in serial form in 1915, but it lingered in obscurity until it was compiled and re-released as a book in the 1950s. This was a time when pulp novels were everywhere, and when pulps of every stripe were being devoured by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So with comic books being the offspring of the pulps, Lee and Kirby followed in the tradition of creating something new out of bits and pieces of other sources. It's the same type of pastiche that created Star Wars, and the type of influential lineages passed down through the generations that led from Ford to Kurosawa to Peckinpah to Wu to Tarantino. It's a way of taking a tapestry of digested inspiration from the past and grafting it onto the sensibilities of the present. From native cultures to the Smithsonian to Burroughs to Marvel, the spirit of Wakanda managed to travel up to the zenith of pop culture echelons virtually undetected, kind of like a nation hidden in plain sight for centuries. The other part of the name comes from a different pre-Columbian nation. Oaxaca is the region of Mexico famous for mezcal, and Oaxaca is the Hispanicized version of the Nahuatl word, Oaxaca, which is the name of the outpost the Aztecs set up in that region in the 15th century. In terms of the mezcal, you want to use something really smoky to punch through and give balance to the other strong flavors in the drink. I like this one best with my go-to coffee liqueur, the St. George Nola coffee liqueur. It's not as sweet as other coffee liqueurs. The flavor focuses on the Ethiopian coffee and the chicory. I like it on the dry side, but if you want something a little sweeter, feel free to use your favorite coffee liqueur. The tricky part with this drink is the Fernet. This one uses a Mexican Fernet called Fernet Ballet. It's extremely dark, and not as minty as Fernet Branca. The flavors are more woodsy, more clove and cardamom forward. If you can't get your hands on this Fernet and really want to make this drink, I'd suggest subbing in a Verna, 70 proof Cynar, or Leatherby Fernet. If you can't find any of those, A heavy, dark Amaro will get you in the ballpark. But in terms of the substitutes, Averna will get you closest to the mark. This drink probably owes a debt to Eric Castro's Mezcal and Coffee remix of a Mezcal Negroni, the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. However, it wasn't something I was conscious of when I was creating the drink. Oaxaca Forever is a bold, herbal fusion of flavors from mesquite to espresso and vanilla to tobacco. It's a simple drink that looks like a fancy glass of cold brew, but beneath its mild-mannered appearance is something a little stronger, just like its namesake. We'll start by measuring 1.5 ounces of mezcal. Add that to your glass. Measure 3/4 ounce of coffee liqueur. Add that to your glass. Measure 1/2 ounce of Fernet. Add that to the glass. Add ice and stir to chill it down and give it some dilution. Top it off with a little more ice to get your fill line in the right spot. And that's all there is to it. A drink to put panther claws in your chest. Oaxaca Forever. Salud. You can support this channel by clicking on the Patreon link here. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For links, more info, and the printed recipe, check out the description below. Definitely check out Peter Manseau's article. There were a couple other details I didn't have time to go into. You'll find a link to the article in the description below.